What's going on, guys? It's Fractalistic. So today we're going to be doing a deck profile for Madolche. I've been playing these guys since they came out. I mean, definitely since Abyss Rising. I think it's a really strong deck. And yeah, I just wanted to show you guys kind of what I'm running. Alright, so let's get right into it. For the first thing, I'm playing 3 copies of Madolche. This card's an auto include. It's a Stratos for the deck. I mean, it does eat up your normal summon, but you know, with the way that things have been going for Madolches, that is really not the biggest deal anymore. In fact, this card is a 1-card OTK. So really strong card. You're playing it at 3. Next up, we have the first major piece of support that Madolche got after the fact that really brought them up into, I mean, really competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Before that, they weren't a very viable deck, and with the release of Angeli at the time, they actually had a lot of potential, easily tier 2, which is kind of where they are now, so it's actually kind of similar to what happened with Petting Sisur, but yeah, you play Angeli at 3. She's a really strong extender as well. She's an enabler for Hootcake, even if you have nothing in the grave. With her and something to extend just a little bit further, that you can also TK. So yeah, you definitely play her at 3 as well. Next 3 of, we have Petting Sisur. This is the most recent piece of support. We got this in Savage Strike. Actually, technically not true. This is definitely the most recent piece of main deck support. Really strong card. This kind of is what brings Madolche into modern day. It turns your +1s into +2s, and it enables combos, making your Chocolat a la mode, which used to be this kind of neat little card that you found a way to abuse with Brilliant Fusion, a very organic card in the deck that you can now make easily and really plus off of twice, sometimes in one turn. It's pretty wild. So after that, we're playing 3 copies of Madolche Hootcake. This guy's strong as well. He is a standard extender, so you definitely want to see him to keep those plays going. Really, he's really strong because Petting Sisur, you can't activate her summoning effect if you have monsters in the grave, so he's really good at mitigating that because he actually wants monsters in the grave to activate. So you can still play hand traps with Hootcake. Next you have his targets, which are Messenger Lotto. I mean, for what, 5-6 years now, it's been the same thing. You have to play 2 because if you draw it, then your Hootcakes are completely dead. But you do have some plays that you can, I mean, he is a strong card if you don't see him in your hand, funnily enough. And he does allow you to search out your Madolche spell and traps, which is really strong. Next up, finally, for the last Madolche card is Madolche Puddingcess. She's not as much of a brick in the hand as Messenger Lotto is, because Petting Sisur, unlike Hootcake, can actually special summon monsters from the hand as well as the deck. So at least if you draw her, it's just a card that could have been something else, not just a card that could have been something else, and now you can't use your strongest card. However, she is not a very good card. She could literally be a standard Madolche card. I don't want to say vanilla, because all Madolches have that effect where they shuffle back in, right? So they couldn't really make a vanilla Madolche card. But she could be just a regular Madolche card with no extra effect, and she'd be as strong as she is now, which is kind of unfortunate. Yep, you play her because you want to activate her effect. You want to have her attached to Chocolat mode, so you gotta play her. That's it for the Madolche monsters. It's the 9, 12, 16? No, 15 Madolche monsters, whoops. And that's it. That's all you're playing for Madolche monsters. After that, you're going into our main deck tech choices. We just play these in the main deck because we're going second, so they usually hit something. I mean, no one's gonna. They're vague enough that they can definitely hit really anything that goes first, unless they hit you with like specific cards. First two, Gamma Seal. This is standard in Madolche. We This is just played at 2 in Madolche. Madolche, I mean, they like to shuffle stuff back in, and Gamma Seal likes to stop your opponent from having effects on the board for monsters. So it's perfect. He shuffles back into your hand, so that's always awesome. Yep. Next we have Triple Pankratops. He's actually, I feel like he's really similar to Gamma Seal in the way that, and kind of like what he does. I mean, obviously you're special summoning on your side, not their side, but it's really kind of a piece of removal for your opponent's monsters so that they don't actually interfere with your combos, which is kind of a vague statement. That's not really saying a whole lot. But these actually really work pretty well in tandem with each other. You can special summon one and then special summon the other one to your side. So it works great. I mean, you could do it in whatever order you want. But yeah, these really important. I mean, this is just a strong card in general. So you want to play. Those are your specific tech options, and then we move on to the hand traps. So you're playing 3 Ash Blossom and 3 Ghost Ogre. These are kind of just the strongest hand traps right now. I think Ghost Ogre could actually be Veiler. That would be fine. But I personally prefer Ghost Ogre. Just the destruction effect is nice. But yeah, these three. I mean, these 2, 3 ofs are pretty standard as well. That's it for the monsters. It's 26 monsters. Next we have our spells. 2 Chateau, 1 ticket. I think there's kind of this debate going on right now as to whether or not Chateau should be at 1 or 2. I like 2. I think a lot of people's logic on playing 1 is that you can search it with Messengelado, but if you can only get 1 Messengelado search that turn, then you would rather just see the second one. Plus, sometimes it gets twin twisted or what have you. It leaves the board, and you can recycle it with the Tiramisu. But why not just have the second one in your hand ready? You're probably going to activate a Messenger Auto effect after the fact anyway, and these are the only Madolche spells. So I like the second one. It's actually the 41st card, so you could totally cut it. I mean, it's still run my list, but run it at 40. But I like it at 2. Next up, we have the non-Madolche spells. So first one is Pot of Extravagance. This card's really strong. I think there's like a trade-off because most decks that you play this in don't go into their side or their extra deck at all, and this one is actually really important to go into your extra. You can't do a whole lot with your main deck, but you have I mean, just a free +1. You just have to play it. I think anyone who doesn't play Pot of Extravagance is really discounting that. And I mean, it's an expensive card, so a lot of people are gonna say, it's bad because they think it's bad. But then, I guarantee when this is reprinted, this is gonna be a comment, or this is gonna be an auto include in Madolche. Guarantee it. Next up, we have the 3 Dark Ruler no more. We're going second deck, so this is a main deckable card right here. I mean, there are decks where you side it out against, obviously, but for the most part, if you're playing against meta, you can just keep this in and just hit them, and then that basically guarantees that all your combos are going to go off. And like I said, we have 1 card OTKs in this deck, and it's not like we're instant OTK into an empty board. You're shuffling 4 cards back in, that turn. So there's really, even if you don't kill them, like you've just plus sixed that turn. You know, you're not gonna lose that game. So, I mean, Dark. Yeah, he's just. This is a very strong card. I think it's a good enough to main in Madolche at least. Let's see. Then we have 3 Called by the Grave. This is kind of more of that. Along that line, you really want to play. Called by the Grave lets you do that. It's a little bit weird because this is actually going second deck. So sometimes their negations are already on the board, and this is less effective, but this also has kind of neat interactivity with cards that normally actually stop you, like for example, Pankratops tributes itself to destroy. You call by the grave, you negate that Pankratops. You know, stuff like that. So even if stuff is already out, you can still negate it. Or you can still negate some things. And obviously, it's not like your opponent's gonna not have the hand traps because they went second. Next, we're gonna get into the last 3 spells. 3 Twin Twisters. You are shuffling a lot back in, but you'd rather just destroy their stuff before you start making your plays that, you know, you're not vulnerable. This deck is somewhat reliant on its normal summon, and you really want to make sure that your combo goes through. So we're playing a lot of back row hate, a lot of getting your opponent's stuff off the board and kind of into a position where you can just play the game because you're going second. So a lot of the deck is kind of mitigating that fear. That's it for the main deck. Let me go into the extra deck. So we're going to start with the Exceeds. Obviously, we're playing triple Tiramisu. This card is still broken. 7 years later, this card's absurd. But just shuffle 2 of your opponent's cards back in. If you have Chateau out, add 2 cards from your graveyard back to your hand. That is actually just a straight up +4. Like, how many cards in Yu-Gi-Oh do that? And can do that while being non-targeting. Not really any. So yeah, I mean, this card, this is really what makes the deck. You have to play this at 3. You can play it at 2 if you're not playing the Desires, and then you can, you know, hide away your ugly common. But like I said, you are not Desires Extravagance. You're playing Extravagance. You have to. So you do need to play this at 3. The next one, and all the really most of the main most of the extra stuff is 3 of because of Extravagance, and you really don't want to banish all 3 copies of anything. So you really want to play your 3 ofs. Glass Souffle, also a pretty strong card. This is the actual most recent piece of support that Madolche got, and I think it was like just enough to push it over the edge. It has like a protection effect while it's out with Chateau in defense position. Then it has a 3,000. It has 3,000 defense, and then it has a protection effect, so you're unaffected by other monster effects. And in addition to that, when you send a Madolche card to the graveyard, so e.g. detaching its own effect, detaching a material for its own effect, you can shuffle 2 cards back in. So you can that can be 2 of your cards, and by the way, that's 2 of your cards that if you have Chateau out, you can just add back to your hand. I mean, that includes like hand traps. Would not actually activate because of the fact that it's not a monster. But yeah, you can get hand traps back to your hand. You can get Pankratops back to your hand. You can get another Kaiju if you want. You have options, right? But next, we're playing the 3 Chocolatl mode. This card's just the hardest extender ever in a 3,000 beater that you're going to punch them in the face with to win the game. This card with you know, like off of the smallest things it triggers, you know, activating Ticket, activating Chateau is just all these like minor things that allow you to actually plus off of Pudding Cess. She just has a lot of interactions with specific cards that make her kind of an auto-include at 3 of. And unlike with the other two, where it's more for consistency, you're usually making 2 to 3 Chocolat a la mode per game if you can. So there's really, you really do want to run 3. Next up, we're playing Triple Sistart. A bad Link to Madolche monster that is a Link to Madolche monster, kind of similar to the Pudding Cess. You just run her because she fulfills the right, game mechanic conditions, and she's a Madolche monster. So, what are you gonna do? But I mean, occasionally her effect comes up, so she's neat. That's it for the Madolche monsters. It's this most of your extra deck is just the Madolche monsters. You're playing 12, and then finally for your 3 ofs, you're playing Nightmare Phoenix, Soldier of Chaos, and Appaloosa. Nightmare Phoenix, I mean, self-explanatory. If you need to hit a back row, you can. Honestly, you don't go into him all that much. If the deck is doing what it's supposed to be doing. BLS, this is its own win condition. And if you're trying to play around like Nibiru or something like that, you can make him in less than 5 summons. The only thing about BLS and I mean all 3 of these guys actually that you should be aware of is that you cannot make them on a turn that you use Petting Sasur, which is honestly not that big a deal for Madolche anyway. You have a lot of ways to make extenders. You can go forward and still make a lot of plays. With just your ticket activation, your hoot cake activation, you can still special summon Petting Sasur out to the field. You just can't use her second effect to pull a monster out of the deck. So just getting 3, especially theoretically with let's say Soldier of Chaos, right? You're theoretically wanting to activate to get his effect off a level 7 or higher monster, so you're possibly, if you open up 2 Gamma Seal or one of the Pankratops, then that's your first summon right there. Let's say you can just get a Hoot Cake to trigger, like that's 3 monsters already. You special summon him, and then bam, you win the game. Appaloosa is a little tougher. Sometimes you special summon her at maybe 2400, or a lot of times what will happen is the game will pass to you. You haven't used a Petting Sasur yet, and then you make her from there. Really, these are not gone into all that much. So these don't have to be these guys. But I do really like the BLS more than the other 2. But yeah, these can kind of be interchanged a little bit more. And that is the deck, guys. That's Madolche. If you got any questions or have any thoughts about the build, definitely let me know. Thank you very much. I'll see you later.